morning, all. Happy to see your faces this morning. Welcome on this beautiful sunny Sunday. We welcome everyone to our Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We have a terrific speaker joining us this morning. I welcome the Reverend Karon Sandberg, who is here again. She has been with us in the past, and we enjoy her so much. Karon is a recently retired hospice chaplain, and she is busy working on a book about the lessons that her patients taught her about living. And she services also the Fox Valley UU Fellowship as a community minister, and she has been speaking at other UU congregations as well. So thank you so much, Karon, for joining us this morning. Her topic is Divinity Lies in the Actions of Our Shadow. Carl Jung said our shadow self is a part of ourselves that we're afraid to reveal to others. And we all hold things in our shadow self. But what would happen if we brought those things out of the darkness and into the light? So, Karon, we are looking forward to having you share that with us today. The theme in March for the UU congregations around the country and world is commitment. And commitment to our congregation, commitment to our covenant, commitment to our principles, commitment to doing the work of our 8th newly adopted principle, commitment to staying safe, but still staying connected, commitment to relationships and forgiveness. These are the words of Rollo May, The Courage to Create. The acorn becomes the oak. Because of the miracle of automatic growth, there's no commitment needed. The puppy becomes the dog on the basis of that instinct as well. Nature and being are identical in creations like these. But a person can become more truly human by his or her choices and our commitment to those choices that we make. People attain worth and dignity by the multitude of decisions that they make from day to day. And those decisions require courage often and commitment. So I welcome all of you this morning. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs.
We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
And our opening words today are from Ashley Horan, The Holy Work of Showing Up. You are loved beyond belief. You are enough. You are precious. Your work and your life matter, and you are not alone. You are part of a we, a great cloud of witnesses, living and dead, who have finished and insisted that this beautiful broken world of ours is a blessing worthy of both deep gratitude and fierce protection. Our ancestors and our descendants are beckoning us, compelling us onward toward greater connection, greater compassion, greater commitment to one another and to the earth. Together, we are resilient and resourceful enough to say yes to that call, to make it our life's work in 1,000 different ways, knowing that we can do no other than bind ourselves more tightly together and throw ourselves into the holy work of showing up again and again to be part of building that world of which we dream, but which we have not yet seen. And our opening hymn today is Spirit of And at this time, I again warmly welcome Karon Sandberg. She is going to do a reading for us this morning called On Being the Wholly Broken by Lizelle Graham. And then she will go into her presentation, Divinity Lies in the Actions of Our Shadows. Welcome, Karon.
Good morning. It's so lovely to be here with you. I know I was sharing with the worship team earlier this week that I hope I can come one day and see your beautiful building and just be with you in person. I hope that's going to happen soon. So yes, our reading today comes from Lizelle Graham, and it is called On Being the Wholly Broken. You wonder if it's worth living your life cracked wide open, whether wearing your heart on your sleeve and all your hopes carried in unclutched hands is ever safe, where all the world can see and all the world can say what they feel about the tender courage that's taken root within you. It will not be easy. No, definitely not. There will be pain. It's a new birth after all. But you must not curl inward. Lift your head, unfurl your spirit, reach upward, live outward. You are the wholly broken, the one holding the light. And if you show your scars, people will come and they'll sit with you and they'll listen. This is how we heal each other, by living gently, by walking vulnerably, being unafraid of opinion, ready to wipe away tears and fears and other darknesses of the spirit. So yes, do it. Live your life like a white dove on the battlefield, cracked wide open. I promise you, in the end, it'll be okay. This month, my book group is reading This Is How It Always Is by Lori Frankel. It's a lively story about a young family with 4 boys. The mother's a doctor, the dad's a writer. They live in Madison, Wisconsin. And it starts with all the usual chaos one would expect with 4 little boys and 2 working parents. There's never enough time for anything. The kids are running wild in the house, and the parents are hanging on and doing the best that they can. As their youngest son, Claude, turns 4, he starts to create dresses out of long t-shirts. At preschool, he loves the princess gowns and tiaras in the dress-up bins the best. It's Madison, it's liberal, the parents think it's just a phase, and nobody blinks an eye. For his first day of kindergarten, he comes happily down the stairs, ready for school, wearing a dress. His parents tell him repeatedly that those are just play clothes and ask him to go get ready for school. After 4 or 5 reminders to him, he finally screams in reply, "I am ready for school, and this is what I want to wear." As you can imagine, the family begins to discover that their son Claude feels his identity to be more feminine. And the book is about their journey of accepting their child for who she is. Over time, even in liberal Madison, there are some physical threats made to their child. The mother painstakingly researches other communities and decides Portland is where they can live without judgment. They move across the country, and from that day forward, everyone only knows their child as Poppy, a girl. Meanwhile, their other boys are struggling with having to move to hide their younger sibling's secret. And the parents carry this secret tightly in their chests. But one day, as one might expect, the secret's out, and Poppy's life and her family's lives are forever changed. Secrets. We all hold secrets, some bigger than others, some shared, some left untold. Carl Jung, a 19th century psychoanalyst, understood that our shadow self is where we hide the parts of ourselves we may be too afraid to show the world. I think in today's world, this separation of who we show the world and who we really are on the inside is even more separated by the use of social media. We can create a life online, a life that perhaps feels more suitable. How many likes people receive only encourage more facades to be built. I wonder, and I worry about young children today, whose every life moment now requires a picture and a posting before it's real. I wonder about folks who spend more time creating this image of a life than actually living their lives. What might our shadow self be, you wonder? For some of us, it may be big and challenging issues that we've carried for years, such as our own addictions or family members' addictions, abuse, sexual identity, or the pressures of mental health issues. For others, it may be less challenging, but perhaps still troubling. Maybe it's the way we are quick to judge others, or we feel the rise of racist thoughts, even if we know they're not in keeping with our larger view. Maybe it's never feeling good enough, or feeling like we don't belong. For me, more recently, it is trying so very hard not to let feelings of hate, an emotion that I never feel, seep into my relationships with loved ones who think COVID-19 is not a big deal, or they vigorously supported a past president that I could not abide. Psychologist Anne Solomon says that even if we bury our shadow self, that side of ourselves does not go away by repression or denial. We might be spared the conscious knowledge of it, but it goes on to influence what we do. It lives in our hidden agendas and secret intentions. Solomon says to deny our shadow self is to live in unreality. Denying our shadow can amount to living a half-life, unable to live honestly and with fullness and intention. As Poppy's secret is discovered at her school, she faces horrible bullying and shame. Friends and neighbors feel betrayed by her and her family for the lies and the secret they hid from them. Poppy gives up being a girl and shaves her long blonde hair and goes back to being Claude. Somehow it seems easier for everyone else. But Claude is an identity that no longer fits anymore either. And Poppy, well, Poppy was clearly too dangerous and shameful for her family. Claude becomes depressed and struggles in school. He stays home and hides in his bedroom most of the time. His light and his spirit are slowly being extinguished. Carl Jung reminds us that the shadow's darkness is a result of its being deprived of the light of consciousness. He says that no part of the self is inherently bad, although we're certainly capable of doing bad things. But the shadow's darkness is a result of it being deprived of the light of consciousness, of our own awareness. This whole sermon came from a sentence I read somewhere, and I wish I could find it again, but I only wrote down the sentence and nothing more. It said, "Divinity grows in the actions of our shadow self." I was so taken by this thought that divinity grows in that darkness. I think this might be another way of understanding what Jung was saying about depriving the shadow of the light of consciousness. If I bring my shadow out of its hiding place and into the light, divinity and godliness can grow within it. We know this to be true as we see this at work in AA and recovery groups. Quietly and diligently going to support groups to share honestly about the darkness and shame around addiction brings it into the light, brings in connection, brings in acceptance and love and healing. And if that's not divine, I don't know what is. I see this in the hard work that folks do in therapy, trying hard to make sense of past that harmed and hurt them, pulling those memories and patterns out of dark closets, learning to hold them up to the light and gently parse out and polish the gifts that they were given in those hardships. And then letting go of the tight grasp we have had on the parts that only harmed us. My sister Donna has always felt like someone on the outside looking in. She's a smart and funny and talented artist, but she struggles mightily with social interactions and she's often confused by them. She grows anxious as she tries to sort out what others expect of her and how to respond. She'd much rather be alone where everything feels safe and makes sense. She's in her late 60s now and has forged with great effort a life where she's found joy and a sense of purpose. As I know her so well, I know there are walls up in places that are there to help her feel safe. About 5 years ago, she began to learn more about Asperger's syndrome and found a sense of what was really going on with her. She's mildly on the spectrum, enough so that she's carried this sense that something was wrong with her for all these many years. Just knowing why now has given her a sense of relief, a sense of bringing this thing that felt broken and wrong out into the light of understanding has helped. This awareness has given her some peace. But divinity revealed itself when a great niece started to show similar symptoms at a young age. My sister was so taken by this struggling, smart, angry, gentle, wild child that the two of them grew very close. Sylvie calls Donna, my Donna, and their shared understanding of how they are in the world makes them love one another unconditionally in ways that only they can truly understand. Even in COVID times, they Zoom together, passing art projects and stories back and forth between their homes. Together, they love their difficulties and challenges in divine ways because together, they're bringing their shadow out into the light. Psychologist Anne Solomon says that human consciousness does not really emerge at any depth except through struggling with our shadow. It's in facing our conflicts and contradictions that we mature. She says we largely remain unconscious as human beings until issues come into our lives that we cannot fix or control. When we're forced to expand and deepen our understanding, we then come into full consciousness. Acknowledging and embracing our shadow self is the only way we can truly know ourselves. But to do this, one must be committed to the work of knowing oneself. Beloved poet Mary Oliver said, "This is the first, wildest, and wisest thing I know, that the soul exists and is built entirely out of intention." I want to pause and say that again because it's deeply profound. The soul exists and is built entirely out of intention. The soul is built out of intention. Now, as you use, I'm sure every one of you has a different idea about the soul, what it is, if it even exists, where it lies, and what happens after our bodies let go of it. I'm not about to try and put name or a reason to any of that right now. Those are thoughts for you to hold. But I'm loving this idea that the soul is built of intention. We decide to give intention to what exists in our souls, in our core. I would expect all of us would want love and kindness and justice and peace to be things we strive with intention to create in our lives. Those are things that transcend times and are eternal, perhaps like a soul. And yet, those are also the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter things that we hold up to others to say, yes, this is who I am. This is who we are as a family, or a congregation, or even a denomination. But what would happen if we would add our shadows, our baggage, our challenges, our heartaches, or what many would consider brokenness? What if we bring that with us, with intention, so that we can connect to each other in understanding? What if we bring the divinity of our darkness with intention to our souls? For me, this feels real. This feels honest, and actually very holy. Earlier in our reading by Gazelle Graham, she said, if you show your scars, people will come and they'll sit with you and they will listen. This is how we heal each other, by living gently, by walking vulnerably. You show your scars, people will come and sit with you. Just like how people across the world make a commitment to sit in stale and windowless church basements telling their truth in AA or Al-Anon meetings and showing their scars to each other. That commitment works and it helps, and divinity grows there. I have some wonderful friends in my life, some who I jokingly say if I called them in the middle of the night and I said I needed help fighting the body, that they would come. No questions asked. These are friends in which we have shown our scars to each other. And instead of feeling shame about them, we've learned that the skin of the scar is thicker and stronger and nothing to be ashamed of. Claude went with his mother to Thailand. She worked for a medical practice that sponsored a clinic, and it was her turn to serve some time there. Claude had stopped going to school by then. He was so depressed. His mom figured taking him along offered him a change of scene, and that might help. He was lost, and he didn't know who he was anymore. In Thailand, he found solace in teaching English to young children while his mom was busy at the clinic. He used storytelling, a skill he had learned from his dad, to teach them words, and it worked. The children loved him. And they looked forward to spending time with him. Eventually, Claude's depression started to lift, and he naturally began to return to Poppy, the identity that brought joy and a sense of place in the world. The children didn't mind. They loved Poppy as much as they loved Claude. And in the end, Poppy dispelled her fear. And I read directly from the book now. She tamed what was scary about herself, not by hiding it, not by blocking it, not by keeping it a secret, but by reminding herself and everyone else to choose love, to choose openness, to think and be calm, that there are more ways than just two, There are wider possibilities than hidden or betrayed, stalled or broken, male or female, right or wrong. She learned that there were middle ways, that there are ways beyond. In many ways, it may feel like as a nation, we are in need of healing and renewal. Perhaps we can commit ourselves to the idea that there are wider possibilities, and that perhaps to heal, we need to consider middle ways of how we can be together with those who think or live differently than we do, with intention and with gentle grace. And we bring our shadow selves out into the light. May we show our scars to one another. People will come. They have scars that they're hiding too. To create a beloved community, we must make a commitment to sit with each other in understanding. And if we can, in that action is divinity. May it be so.
Karon, thank you so much. I've also read that book, and it was powerful, so powerful. I appreciate so much your words. I have found in the past that when we're brave enough to open up and share some of those shadows, that there's a sense of relief, not just from myself, but from the person I'm speaking to, because that allows them to say, oh, let me tell you about what's happened to me, or let me share my experience with you. It opens up doors. But it's so hard sometimes to share things that we're not real proud of.
No, exactly. No, and I agree 100% with you, Mary Jo. And I learned this from my patients, when I talked about when you mentioned the book I'm writing, they taught me that the minute we shared our truths together, it became a bridge to understanding. Instead of this facade that, we kept up to protect ourselves from, whatever image we thought we were creating. It is always a bridge to understanding. And it took me a while. It took me a long time to understand that. There were years where I never spoke of my dad's alcoholism. And yet the minute I got brave enough to share it, oh my gosh, everybody I'm sure on this, Zoom has got some connection to someone with a problem with alcohol, whether it's a neighbor or a friend or a family member. It touches all of us. And, to not be able to sit down and be honest with that huge burden is painful. It keeps you in the dark. It keeps you feeling that shame. The minute you speak it, wow. Everyone else wants to show you their scar too. You're not alone, which is huge.
And during COVID, we have an opportunity to even hide it easier.
Yeah. Oh my. Yeah. I wonder about abuse, things like that are probably occurring more so, if anyone has, leaning towards even verbal abuse, physical abuse, drug abuse, alcohol abuse. You just think it's got to be intensified during this time. And I hope family members and children especially, as they get back to school, there might be some spaces opened up for that. How was it for you? What did you have to go through? Because I'm sure it's been tough. I'm not saying parents aren't struggling. My husband and I joke that, wow, how wonderful that our children are growing out, that we weren't homeschooling our children on top of working jobs and being isolated, in this world. The stress must be intense.
A lot to think about.
Yeah.
So again, Karon, thank you so much from all of us. A beautiful morning with important words to ponder.
Thank you.
We do have a closing hymn today, and I picked it after reading Karon's reading, and it's called Japanese Bowl. by Peter Mayer.
I'm like one of those Japanese bones that were made long ago. I have some cracks in me. They have been filled with gold. That's what they used back then when they had a bone to mend. It did not hide the cracks. It made them shine instead. So now every old scar shows from every time I broke, and anyone's eyes can see I'm not what I used to be. But in a collector's mind, all of these jagged lines make me more beautiful and worth a much higher price. I'm like one of those Japanese bones. I was made long ago. I have some cracks, you can see how they shine of gold.
Our closing words today are by Cynthia Landrum. Be true, be well, be loving. And Lori will read those for us this morning.
We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for each other. Our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. Until we are together again, friends, be strong, be true, be loving.